The new 24 coil, pre-built coil for the Arctic V12. How's it going, everybody? This is Andy with AspenValleyVapes.com. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new Arctic 24 coil for the Arctic V12 sub-ohm tank. Now, I did already cover this tank completely in a separate video, but HorizonTech did send over some of their new 24 coils for the V12, and we're going to check that out today because I've seen a lot of requests on these coils because they are some beastly coils. So the 24 coil is rated from 0.1 to 0.12 ohms. There's a little variation in there. They do leave a little bit of wiggle room in there. It's not a definitive 0.1 or 0.12. It is in that range of 0.1 to 0.12 ohms. And the recommended wattage range on this coil is from 130 to 200 watts, but it can go up to 300 watts is what HorizonTech is saying on this beastly little coil here. So this video is going to be a little bit different than the normal video where we go through the basics, dive in, take a close-up look, all of that. Today we're going to start off, have a quick vape on it. I've got it at 130 watts, and then we're going to dive in, take a close-up look at it. I'm going to pull one of these apart so you can see the interior of one of these 24 coils, and we'll take a close-up look and we'll bring it back up top. Have a few more vapes on it, and I'll give you my overall thoughts on this 24 coil replacement coil for the Arctic V12. All right, so this is at 135 watts on the G-Priv right here. At 135, it's definitely a pretty smooth vape, not too warm at all, especially for 135 watts. I think we do need to bump it up a little bit more to get that full-on vapor production. Before we do that, let's dive in, take a close-up look at it, and pull one of these coils apart. All right, here we have the packaging on the 24 coils, 0.1 to 0.12 ohms, 130 to 200 watts, up to 300 watts. Massive package right here. You can see the actual coil right here. Here you can see the actual coils themselves. You can see I have gone through a couple of these already. So before I do go ahead and pull this one apart, let's go ahead and take a quick look at it. You can see 4 cotton intakes on here, big replacement coil. Look on top, you can see the 4 coils there. You do have those stacked 6 times for a 24 coil replacement coil. See the airflow on the bottom. One thing you do want to take note of that I've seen is sometimes these bottom pieces are pretty loose on here, so you do want to make sure it's fully pushed in and that O-ring is nice and tight when you do put it in your V12. I have noticed that on a couple of these. Some of them come like this or partially off like that, so that's something you do want to take note of. Let's go ahead and pull this one off. Here you can see it from the bottom. Take off that portion right there. You can see the 4 coils in there. Now here you can see the actual wire when you do pull that coil out here. Cotton up on top, that is how it is nice and wrapped in there. Other than being a 24 coil replacement coil, it is pretty standard here. Not really too much to look at on the interior. Here you can see the 24 coil without 3 of them in there. I did take those 3 out. And when you do just pop this out like so, you can just see it unwind, pop out. There goes the cotton like that. So that is the 24 coil replacement coil. Just giving you guys a close-up look, dissecting a little bit. You can see these 4 cotton intakes. These are separate from the actual coil themselves. So you can see down in there, that sidewall, they still have the cotton on it on all 4 slots. Let's bring this back up top and have a vape on this guy at some higher wattages. All right, now that we got that close-up out of the way, seeing the interior of the coil, seeing the overall coil design, let's go ahead and bump it up. This is going to be at 160 watts again on the G-Priv. So still at 160 watts, I feel like this coil has not hit its potential yet. It still feels like it's underperforming a little bit. We're going to go ahead and bump it up to 190 now. At 160 there, it was still a good smooth vape. It wasn't too warm at all still, which is actually surprising to me. I'm used to a lot of these higher wattage coils being pretty warm in the vape sense, but this was not too warm of a vape. Let's go ahead and see how it is at 190. All right, here we have it at 190 watts. Still right there, the vapor is still not too warm. It's still got a smooth vape, and I still feel like it could use a little bit more power though. On the G-Priv, the max is 220 watts. Let's crank it all the way up to 220 watts and see how this 24 coil replacement coil works. All right, this is at 220 watts. And if you guys have watched any of my previous videos, you know that I normally like to stay in like the 30, 40, 50 range. Around that 30 to 50 gap is where I normally vape at, so 220 is a lot higher than what I normally vape at. I just prefer the lower wattage personally, and that's how I've always vaped. So sometimes these high watts can be pretty overpowering, but let's go ahead and see how it is at 220 watts. Alright, so with that 220 watts, the first vape, that was nice and smooth, not too warm, great flavor and great vapor production as you guys can see there. Second vape, it was starting to heat up a little bit, and then on that third vape, consecutively chain vaping it, that's when it got pretty hot. It was a little bit too hot for me to handle. So if you're going to be vaping at those super high wattages, that's something you're going to want to take note of, is that it is going to be a warm vapor if you're chain vaping it. If you do like chain vaping, I definitely don't think this would be a good tank if you're going to be in that high wattages. Let's bring it back down to the 190 range and let's chain vape it on that. Alright, I brought it down to 170 again. Let's go ahead and see how chain vaping works at 170. Should be fine. It was fine at the 160, 190 range. So let's go ahead and have a quick chain vape at 170. So at 170 watts there, that is fine chain vaping. On that fifth one, it definitely started to get a little bit warmer there, but if you cut it off for say 5 seconds and then vape again, you'll be good. I don't know how long you're going to be chain vaping for. If you're just going to do 100 of those in a row, then yeah, it is going to get pretty hot and not going to be an overall comfortable vape. My overall thoughts on this 24 coil replacement coil, I think it is a great coil. It does perform great. Obviously, for the super high wattage vapors, this coil is for you. It can get up into those very high ranges. Up to 300 watts is what HorizonTech states on this coil. And overall, it's got great performance. One thing to take note of is it is going to drink through your juice. This coil drinks through juice more than any coil I've ever used. Any of the V8 T8 coils, all of the V8 coils do not drink as much juice as this 24 coil does. So that's something you're going to want to take note of there, is that it does go through a ton of e-liquid. Other than that though, I don't notice too crazy of a difference between say the V8 T8 coil or the previous HorizonTech V12 coils. That is pretty much going to wrap up this video though. If you guys have any questions on the V12, the 24 coil replacement coil, or any other vaping related questions in general, please leave a comment down below. And if you did enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. It is greatly appreciated. And as always, I hope you guys have a wonderful day and vape on.